What's going on, guys? If you've been following this series so far, in the last video we made a secret room and we had to resort to blowing up the door with an attack instead of a bomb because we didn't have bombs yet. So in this video we're gonna start the process of making bombs. Now I've created a shader which is actually doing like this cool effect where you see the bomb growing and shrinking. So when you have a bomb out, he's gonna hold it above his head and the bomb is gonna like shrink and grow, very similar to like the early day Legend of Zelda, like the 2D Legend of Zelda games. It's not the same as the Binding of Isaac, okay? The Binding of Isaac, you drop the bomb on the ground. You don't actually put it above your head. And the only way you can really throw bombs is if you get like, what's it called, where he shoots bomb tears. Anyway, this is going to be really cool because you can actually change all of like the settings for the bomb. So you can make it flash faster, which is really cool. You could also make it flash slower if you want it to go really slow. You can change the colors. So like maybe you don't want it to flash red. Maybe it's a poison bomb, so it's going to be flashing green. And then like, you could change the outline of it as well. So like you could have like a green outline. You could have it like going down to like a darker green as well instead of going down to black. So you can change all the settings for this. It's just a shader. We're not doing any coding in this video. We're just going to be using a shader to actually make the bomb grow and shrink. And then in the next video, I'm actually going to show you how you can implement the animation and have him actually throw the bomb and the explosion. And there's also like, there should be like sparks or something coming out of the top of the bomb. We're not going to be doing that in this video because it's going to be too long. But yeah, if you guys are enjoying this series so far, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And yeah, so I guess it's just about time for me to delete all the work that I just did. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete both of the bombs and the bomb materials and the stuff. And I'm just going to delete these from the scene as well. So these two bombs that you're seeing here, they're both going to be attached in the description of the video for free. You can download them. I would recommend trying to model bombs yourself. Bombs are one of the most easy, like it's just a sphere and I just dragged up like a line from the top. So if you're not learning modeling while you're trying to learn this as well, you're gonna like, you need to be able to make assets for your own game, right? So I would recommend at least making an attempt to learn modeling while you do this. So let's drag the bombs into the scene here. And if you double click on one of them, you can kind of zoom in. There's two bombs, okay? There's this one on the left, which is the one that I like better. And I also made this other one, but this one is not straight up and down. So from like a top down view, you can see the wick is kind of angled to the right. So I'm gonna be using this one, but you can use whichever one you want. It doesn't matter. So I've created a folder at the bottom called bombs, and I've dragged these two bombs that are attached to the video into the folder, and then I dragged those bombs into the scene. And then I've just like rearranged them so you can see both of them at the same time. Then we want to get the player shader that we used to outline the player, because this is the same shader that we're going to be using. So if you take the player shader, you can press Control C and then you can paste the shader into this folder. We're going to be using, this is going to be our starting point because we already have an outline shader. There's no point starting it over. So rename this shader to bomb shader. In these bombs, we need to set this up, right? So we need two materials. So we're going to right click and create a material. This is going to be the bomb material. And then we're going to right click again and create another material, and it's going to be called the wick material. So inside of these bombs that we've dragged into the scene, we want to select both of them at the same time, drag the bomb material into the top slot, and then in the bottom slot, we'll drag the wick material. So you can see that the bomb has went white, which is completely normal because our shader, this is just set up to be lit right now, right? So we want to just drag this drop down at the very top. This is the shader is lit, and we want to change it to the bomb shader that we just made. So if you've done this right, looks like wick is visible, but the rest of the bomb isn't visible right now. Okay, so if you double click on the bomb shader, it will open up into this graph, right? And this is the same graph that we're using on our players. Okay, so the bomb is invisible because in our player shader, we have a picture. And so the base color for this has an input from this multiply, which has a sample texture 2D, which is blank. We don't have any picture there. So if it's blank, then it doesn't show anything. We're going to delete the entire bottom part of this entire graph. So you can just delete everything down here and then save it, and it should fix it, and you'll have the glow showing. So there's a button on the right here called the blackboard, right? So if you turn this on, you can flicker it by clicking it on and off, right? So we just want to delete everything that we're not using. So right now we have the texture 2D. Oh, you could delete that, the eye glow color and the take damage color. We're not using any of that stuff right now. And we could just drag this downwards actually. So this is the graph that makes our character like glow, like have an outline. We covered covered this in a previous video, so if you want to figure out like how this is working, you can go back and watch that. Okay, and in this blackboard, we want to actually add another color as well. So if you click this plus button, you're adding a variable to the shader graph, and we're going to add a color, and it's going to be the base color. So this is the color of the inside of the bomb. So if you look closely right now, you can see that the base color is like this gray color, which is why it's like not dark at all, right? But the bomb should be black. So we're going to take the base color and we're going to drop it right beside this base color. And we're just going to connect these two little dots together, okay? So if you click on the base color and at the top right click Graph Inspector, we can set the default color for this. We're going to leave it to black. In the mode, change it from default to HDR. If you don't change it to HDR, you can't make it glow with like emission. And there could be cases where you do want it to glow because it will look better. So after we save this, we can actually just drag it down for a second. If you click on the bomb material, the reason this is still blue and white and stuff is because the colors are set here, right? So even though we've changed them in this here, because this material was already created, we need to set the values here. So I think I did 0.8 on the glow power, or 0.5 maybe on the glow power, and then change this color. You could just change it to white for right now, but you can change it to whatever you want to, right? It doesn't really matter. Change the base color to be completely black. So then you got like this outlined kind of thing going on, and then the wick can be you could just make that white, and then you could leave the glow power at 1. It doesn't really matter for this. So for the bomb material, let's change the metallic to 1. So you can see this takes away that kind of shininess to it. So like at 0, you've got like the reflection off of it, like the light. If you change this to 1, it will be not as reflective, like it looks more metallic, I guess. That's not really metallic, even though it says metallic, it's more like cartoony looking. And the other thing that you could do if you don't want there to be any light at all, you could get rid of the metallic altogether. And in the graph settings, in the graph inspector, you could change it from lit to unlit. Unlit means it's not affected by lighting. So if you do this and you save it, you can see that the whole thing goes black. You'll need to move this entire glowy shader to the base color, because so you'd have to add the base color with this. You'd add them together. Let me just show you. Hang on. So we'll do add A plus this, and this can go into the base color, and then we can save it, right? So the reason being is that this actually looks really cool like that. So you guys can leave it like this if you want to. I'm going to be leaving it lit, but the reason being is that if it's not affected by lighting, there is no emission. So this emission, and you see how it's grayed out? There's no emission in the unlit shader, so you can't use that as like the outline. I'm just going to get rid of this, and I'm going to put it back to the way that it was. But like I said, if you don't want it to be affected by lighting at all, you can get rid of that altogether and make it unlit, and that will make it not affected by lighting at all. So let's change it back to the way that it was. So now we're going to add the part where it actually grows and shrinks. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is right click and create a node, and it's going to be the time node. Okay, the time node is going to go into a multiply node, and this is going to be the speed at which it flashes. So this is the part where we need to add another variable. Okay, so if you click the plus button on the blackboard, we're going to add a float, and it's going to be the flash speed. And you can drag the flash speed down here, and you can drag it into this variable. Then this is gonna, so this output time is counting up from, so like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., right? Multiplied by the flash speed. So that's how fast it will be counting up. And if we drag the output of this into a sine node, this changes everything, right? So right now, let me just make sure flash speed is, yeah, so it's set to 0. So you need to click flash speed and change the default to 1 or whatever number you want to. It just has to be above 0 so you can actually see it, right? So time is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., right? So time, right, is linear, right? So this is time 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc., right? And sine is going between -1 and 1. So at 1, let's say it's -1, right? Then it would go to 0, and then 1, and then 0, and then -1, and then 0, and then 1, etc., right? So you have like this graph where it goes like this. Oops. So this is -1, this is 0, this is 1, this is 0, this is -1, this is 0, this is 1. That's obviously not static, it's rounded, it's smooth, right? But yeah, so it's just growing and shrinking, right? So that's what sine does. Instead of it counting up indefinitely, it's counting between -1 and 1. Hopefully that explanation is really good. And you can see that here. So 0 is black. Everything below 0 actually is black, and everything above 0 is white. Like, so 1 is white, 0 is black, and -1 is also black. So everything below 0 is black. This is giving us a range. So we've got like the -1 to 1, right? Well, we don't actually want -1 to 1 because the bomb can't be -1 in size, obviously, right? So we want this range to be different, actually. So we can use a remap node, and you need to drag it into the input of the remap node. So what the remap node is so we have this number that's going between -1 and 1, right? But we want this to go between like 1 to 1.7 or something like that, right? Or whatever. We're going to actually put a variable for this so we can control the size. But let's just do 1 to 1.7 for right now. So instead of it going between -1 and 1, which it's doing, it's going to go take these numbers and it's going to go between these ranges instead. So when it's at -1, it'll be 1. And if it's at 1, it'll be 1.7, right? So then this output is going to be between 1 and 1.7, which means the size can be the default size and it will grow to 1.7 and then back to 1. So then we need the position, which is how we actually modify the scale of this object. So we'll create a node called the position. And inside of the position node, there's a drop down for the space, and we're going to choose object space. So then we want to multiply these together, and we'll put it to the position in the vertex, right? So if we've done this correctly and we save it, we should see this growing between 1 and 1.7. Now we want to make these numbers so that we can edit them in the inspector, because that's way more fun. And then you can change how big your bomb is going to be without actually having to open this complicated graph. It's not complicated. It's actually really simple. But for some people, if they look at this, they're going to be like, oh my God, especially if it's the first time you've opened the shader graph, right? So in this Blackboard, this is where we create variables that we can change in the inspector, right? So if you look here in the inspector, we have the glow power, the glow color, etc. This is connected, right? So we're going to create another variable, which is going to be a vector2, which is going to be the size, right? If we click on the size, we're going to set the default to 1 and 1.7, but we want to be able to change this. So if we drag the size from here down here, we want this to be the output of the remap. So it's still going to be -1 to 1 no matter what. But the output size, you can change it in the inspector. So if we save this and we move this out of the way, you can see that these are growing from 1 to 1.7. Well, maybe we want them to grow to 5, right? So that's essentially where we're going with this. You can make it grow to any size. Now you have to apply this to the wick as well. So let's put it back to 1.7. The wick is defaulting to 1.7 as well. This is why we're adding this material to the wick as well, because it needs to grow and shrink with the bomb as well. If only the bomb grows, like if you change these numbers, they kind of need to be connected, right? Like they should be the same. So this is how we can make it grow and shrink. And now we need to worry about the color. All right, so to deal with the color, what we're going to do is we're actually going to drag this whole graph upwards, okay? Because we just need to be worrying about this base color. That's what we're going to be changing right now. So when the bomb is bigger, it will be a red or whatever color you want. And when it's smaller, it will be black or whatever color you want, right? So we're going to take this sign output and we're going to put it into another remap node, okay? So we want a color that goes from 0 to 1. So sign is -1 to 1. But our color node is going to be 0 to 1. So if it's 0, it's going to be a certain color. And if it's 1, it's going to be another color, which means no matter what the size is, when it's the biggest size, it will be the full whatever color. And then when it's the lowest size, it will be the first color. So there's 2 colors that we need, right? So the remap is going between 0 and 1. Let me just try to line this up as best I can. And we're going to move all of this over more. Cool. So this remap is going from 0 to 1. We're going to put it into a lerp node. So a lerp node, what it does is it's a number between 0 and 1, right? So 0 is A and 1 is B. T is the time. So in this case, when it's 0, it will do the top thing. And when it's 1, it will do this, right? You could use this for almost anything, right? It doesn't just like, you could do it for colors, you could do it for numbers, you could do it for positions, you could do it for like, it's really, really useful. It's just a linear interpolation. That's what it is technically called, right? So right now we have this base color, and the base color, which is black right now, right? We're going to drag that into the A slot. So when it's at 0, which is the lowest size, it's going to be the base color. But when it's the full size, it's going to need to be a flashing bomb color, right? So we need another color. So if we use the Blackboard again, we need a full size color or flash color, I guess. We'll call it flash color. If you click on flash color, in the graph inspector, change the mode to HDR, change the color to red. The reason it has to be HDR again is because you can change the intensity of the color if you turn it on to HDR, and this allows you to add a glow to it. So if you want, it could be a glowing color instead of just red. I'm not going to be using the glow right now, but it could be useful, so I would turn that on. So we're going to drag the flash color out here, right? And we're going to drag the output of the flash color into B. So when it's the full size, when T is 1, it will be red. And when T is 0, because this is going between 0 and 1, it will be the base color, which is black. Everything in between that will be a mixture of the two colors. So like you can see, this is going between black and red, right? But it's not just going like, okay, it's black, okay, it's red. It's doing all the colors in between this, right? So if this base color was white, you would see like pink as it changes color. And this is really, really awesome. And it makes it so that like when it's smaller, it will be black. And when it's larger, it will be the red. The other thing that you could do is you could set it so that you could take the remap here and you could put this into a branch node for the predicate. So a branch is like true or false, right? Sorry, hang on. Don't put it into a branch node, put it into a comparison node. So compare A, and then you could set greater than, and then put like the higher end of the number. So 1.7 in this case. And you should obviously use your variable for this, but I'm just doing a demonstration. And then you could put this into a branch node for the predicate. So this way, if it's above 1.7, it will flash the color. So let's do 1.3 so you can get the gist of where I'm going with this. So let's drag the base color into false, and the flash color should go into false. The opposite of what I did. So the base color goes into false, because if it's not true, then it will be black. And then if it is true, it's red. So what this will do is you have both options. Okay, I'm going to show you both on the actual bomb itself. So let's put the lerp into the base color. So this is the one that smoothly transitions between the two things, right? So you can see as it's growing, let me move over so we can see the bomb that I actually like. As it's growing, you can see that it becomes more red as it's bigger, and then it becomes black as it's darker. But the branch node, it will immediately go red if it's above this value, right? So instead of it slowly going from black to red, it will go, as soon as it's above 1.3, it will go red immediately. So there's two different ways of doing this. I like the lerp way better, but I think in a lot of games, it's actually the branch node way, and you could put it like closer to the end of it if you want to. So let's get rid of the branch node, but I'm just letting you know this is an option because you could use this for other things too, like visual effects graph and Shadergraph. This is very useful for many other things that you can use this for. So let's just delete this for right now. Like maybe when it gets near the max size, like after a certain cutoff, maybe it becomes wider instead of just like growing in only one axis. It grows on the x-axis too, or it multiplies the x-axis or something like that. There's so many possibilities with that. But let's just put this back to the lerp way. Yeah, so I mean, this is way too shiny for me. Shiny. So let's save this. So I think this is the full bomb shader, if I'm not mistaken. And we're just going to set the metallic to 0. Yeah, I think it's better with metallic 0. Because that metallic 1, it actually looks way too shiny with the red. I don't know, I like it both ways. Okay, and just some finishing touches. I changed the metallic to 0.5, and I changed the ambient occlusion to 0.5, and I changed the smoothness to 0. And that's going to be it for the shader graph. So then in the scene, if we select both the wick and the bob material, we can change some things, like the size could maybe be like a slightly bigger. But you really have to look at this from like a game perspective, right? Like if you're looking at this, what does it look like from the top down view? And it seems pretty clear to me the one on the left looks a lot better. The minimum size needs to just be bigger, maybe. So like only down to 1.5. And then the colors, like obviously you can play around with the colors. The base color could be like maybe like a darker shade of red instead of like all the way to black, so that it doesn't look so like different. And then you've got like these shadows on the side of it. I've turned off shadows inside of the shader itself. So inside of the graph settings, there's like a cast shadows and receive shadows. I turned that off already. I don't think there's anything else. Like, you can play around with all these numbers, like the smoothness, the ambient occlusion, coat smoothness. There's like lots of settings here, so you can make the bomb any texture you want to. That's not the point of the video. The point is just to show you kind of how I made this work. And you can set up your own settings, you know? All right, guys, thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. It really means a lot to me. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. I almost have 500 subscribers, believe it or not. But that's, yeah, that's really awesome. But anyway, hopefully I will see you guys in the next one.